So a little bit of a backstory on this project. I have actually already made tables for this client in the past, which included 5 American Walnut tables, but he wanted one special table. So I said, okay, let me have a look what I can do for you. I sent him a few pictures and he loved the idea, but he loved the end result even more. So much that now he's opened a new restaurant, he wanted 3 tables looking similar. I say similar because no table I make is going to be exactly the same. I explained and he said, that's brilliant, I love the idea, let's do it. So here we are, and enjoy the video. As you can see here, this is the board that I cracked straight through the middle. It makes it super easy to sand the insides. Instead of just leaving them intact and being super careful that they don't split, I just split the board through the middle. Now, working with epoxy is really handy because I can join back the boards, and the black epoxy line between the cracks is going to be gorgeous. So removing the bark and the cambium is something I do on all my table builds. With epoxy builds especially, because if the epoxy is poured with the cambium or the bark still on, you will get a bond between the cambium and the epoxy, or the bark and the epoxy. So you will get splits in a few years. Won't happen right away. When wood starts contracting and expanding, you'll definitely get cracks between the wood and the epoxy. So here you can see my new toy. This is my new 4x2 meter CNC, which I'm going to be using for probably 80% flattening and yeah, probably a few other cool projects in the coming time. This is how I used to do it. I used to flatten all the boards by hand. Now, using a CNC, in my opinion, is just much better. Like, as you can see here, there's a lot of dust as well. The CNC catches all the dust perfectly, and the quality is much higher of all the tables, because the CNC has such a, yeah, it's so precise. So it's an absolute game changer for me. What's an absolute game changer as well is having a second platform in my workshop. I use this platform to pour all my epoxy tables measuring max 2 meters 40 by 1 meters 20 centimeters. This table is round, it's 1 meter 60, so I had to play around a bit, but in the end it turned out beautiful. Using a mold on round tables is a very nice thing to have as well, because once you scribe a line around the wood, you can see what you can cut off. So I don't show that in the video, but I cut off the corners so I minimize epoxy waste. Same goes for the cambium and the bark. I'm going to be removing all the insides of the cracks as well. So I'm going to clean them out so the epoxy bonds well to the wood instead of loose chips. Up until this point, I have cleaned the wood, flattened all the boards and put them onto the mold. Now I'm going to be caulking the sides. This is purely so the epoxy doesn't seep onto the floor. Now I do use this layer of epoxy. It's a thin layer. It is quick drying, so it takes about 24 hours to dry. This is purely so the black pigment of the deep pour resin doesn't sink into the wood, because the wood at this moment in time has quite open structure, or has an open structure which the black pigment will seep into. So I seal all the edges, top, bottom and on the edges. So while I'm gonna pour this last layer of thick epoxy, I'm gonna tell you a little story on why I actually started YouTube. It is to show people just how much work goes in a table like this. Now, of course, you can imagine it's not going to be 20 minutes of work. Like, these tables in total cost me 60 hours to do. So, yeah, you could say 20 hours per table. But the thing is, on YouTube, you see a lot of perfect images. So people not making mistakes. Now, to be honest, I didn't make any major mistakes in this build, but that is purely because I have perfected my craft over thousands of hours of doing this. I mean, I started in the shed of my parents, and I tested a lot, and well, to be honest, I watched a lot of YouTube as well to just get as good as possible at this job. And now I'm in a big workshop because people have gained trust in what I do and clients love my builds. So yeah, I just like showing people how much work actually goes into this, and that there is actually skill involved in making a table like this. So yeah, and I'm really interested in knowing what you guys think of this, so please let me know in the comments. So here's a small little thing that happens to a lot of epoxy tables, is when you route too fast, you will chip the epoxy, and this isn't something you can sand away. So you have to take off another layer, or you could fill it with new epoxy, but I would recommend not doing that because you will see it in the end result. So just put your router as slow as possible and take your time. So I like using C-channels in all of my projects, especially wood this wide. Wood likes to warp and contract, so these C-channels help the wood not warping and contracting more than necessary, and they help the river keep as straight as possible for the years to come. The CNC doesn't actually go all the way through. This is purely because I want the last pass to be by a handheld router. A CNC going all the way through could mean that the router will stick behind and carve into the table itself, or something could go wrong. So I just like doing about a centimeter pass through and using a profile bit and a handheld router to do the rest. Now, something I do on all my table builds as well is that I route in the plates of the base into the tabletop. This is something that, it's a small but quite significant change to a normal table base, I guess, or normal table. And people who will look under the table will really appreciate it as well. If I see a crack anywhere in the table and I think this might go into cracking mode years down the line, I will add dovetails. Dovetails are structurally very strong and keep the cracks together. They probably won't go anywhere, but it gives a bit of personality to the table as well, and yeah, it just makes it a bit more special. Something I've learned too over the 5 years I've been doing this is that the quality of the side people don't see says a lot about a company. So making the underneath of these tables as nice as possible is just something that sets you apart. In my opinion, you can go two ways in making furniture, and one is the luxury side and the other one is mass market. Now, I've always chosen for luxury because I just love the process of doing something really well. And yeah, as you can see, I'm just making the underneath of the table as pretty as possible, which is not always seen by everyone, but it just makes me proud of what I make. Something that's a bit controversial is that I actually quite like sanding. As you go up in grits, you can really see the grain starting to pop. So I normally sand my tables from 80 grit to about 240, and on the epoxy I will sand to 320, cleaning between all the grits, and you really, see the process go from nice to nicer, and it's really satisfying to see. Alright, so this is a mistake I made. I always take account for 4 centimeters extra, especially on round tables, because I just need some extra breathing room for if there's any corners, maybe some bubbles I have to work away or around. In this case there's no bubbles in the table, but there is this annoying little corner, which if I take my circle jig and put it in the center, I can see I'm not going to hit this corner over here, so what I'm going to need to do is make a mold, fill it up with epoxy, and then after that I'm going to route out the 1m60 anyway. So yeah, mistakes do happen, you just have to know how to fix them. This table ended up being my favorite, and that's mostly because of this small little detail. This being matte black is really simple, but like minimalistic design, and I just love how this ended up, so I wouldn't call it a mistake, it's just another add-on to the personality of this table. So in between each layer of finish I am sanding. This is to get a perfect bond between each layer of finish. The sanding grit I'm using is 320 or 400 depending on which coat it is. Now the last layer has to be absolutely perfect because I'm rolling on this finish, and you might get stripes or like lines from rolling too hard, or maybe missing a spot. So I did 4 layers on each table, and I ended up getting the perfect result. Now for the third table, I'm just going to quickly go through all the steps that I did on the other 2 tables, just showing you that the quality is as high as the rest of the tables. So dropping in the seat channels here, routing the round, I wanted to say the round circle, but the circle onto the table with the profile bit, and here of course my favorite detail on the whole project pretty much. Yeah. So these tables are absolutely gorgeous, and I will be showing you the end results very soon. If you look very closely, you can see what I was talking about in the previous clips. These are lines going through the table. This is because I rolled on the finish. I'm going to be sanding off the top layer of finish, making sure not to go through the full protection, and rolling on the last layer of finish very gently. So after this I won't be doing anything else to the table. It's just done, ready to go, and I'll be showing you the end results. And as promised, here are the end results of the tables. I am very happy with how they turned out. I would love to know what you think about them in the comment section down below. And if you want your own table, you can send me a message via Instagram, that is masterworks_, or you can send me an email. The links will be in the description. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you very soon on this channel.